She will introduce herself in due time. She has volunteered to step in and to help. So yes, it's my chance to say a big thank you.
Volunteered.
Sorry, I volunteered today, and she's very gracefully did not decline. So that's been amazing. This session is called Generation Now, Youth Leading the Climate Shift. I also want to say that when we started AlterCOP, we started to design AlterCOP30 Australia. I was born in 1983, so I'm no longer a young person, sadly. But I thought, yeah, we need a youth session and a youth day. And then someone told me, aren't you pointing at the problem of putting young people in a room separated from everything else? And I went, oh, yes. So we decided to make youth a transversal working group, meaning that there's been young voices, and some of you here, in every single one of our sessions across the 4 days. And then Callum, who was leading the youth working group, said, yeah, but I still want a dedicated session, designed by young people, spoken by young people for young people. And so I said, here you are. With all of that said, I would like to do an acknowledgement of country. I'm going to be using words that are not my words. They were sent to me by a beautiful lady called Arabella Douglas. She has helped shape an acknowledgement of country not only for AlterCOP30 Australia, but also for the Australian Pavilion at COP30 in Belém, Brazil. We acknowledge that AlterCOP30 takes place on the unceded lands and waters we now call Australia. Country never ceded and still cared for by its first peoples. We honour ancestors, elders, and the living systems that guide our responsibilities to Earth. We also want to pay respect to the indigenous peoples of the Amazon, host of COP30, and to all First Nations and local communities protecting rivers, oceans, forests, skies around the world. May our work here embody reciprocity, respect, and renewal, carried by the living systems that sustain us all. Thank you. So if you have been here across some of the other sessions, you're probably going to know this by heart, so next year you can explain what AlterCOP is. But AlterCOP is actually a global initiative. It was born in Singapore 3 years ago, out of a bit of frustration of going, yeah, COPs are great and they're so important, but they're just not working, they're not enough. And we have to, fly to the other side of the world, emitting so much CO2 to go and look at each other in the face and realize that we're not taking enough actions. It doesn't make any sense. And someone in the room, it was a bit like this, just went, yeah, we need an AlterCOP. And sure enough, there was enough nutcases in that room to go, yeah, let's make it happen. So last year they held the very first AlterCOP, AlterCOP 29, held in 10 countries, the big event in Singapore, running alongside the COP agenda. It was a big success, it was really well received. And this year, they approached us and asked us to bring AlterCOP to Australia. The founders are the Matcha Initiative and the Transmutation Principles, two organizations based in Singapore. And I always take a moment to acknowledge their founders, Thibaut and Anne, who live in Singapore, born in France, just like me, for trusting that we would do this with the right set of values and a shared commitment to active hope. So if you haven't met me, my name is Audrey Baruti, for those who wonder how to spell my last name. I was born in France. I have been here for almost 18 years. I'm still looking to understand what brought me to Australia and why I feel that this is home for me. Maybe one day I'll come to understand, but it was a very strong call when I arrived on this land to stay here. I live with my husband Peter and my 2 children north of Sanford in a little community called Samson Vale. We live on 40 acres of bushland, trying to walk the talk, and yes, it's not easy every day, but we're trying our best. We're learning heaps. and you're all welcome to come and have a look at what we're doing as well. I lead and co-founded a charity called People for Nature, which is the charity that brought AlterCOP30 to Australia. Our theory of change at People for Nature is quite simple. We just want to try to make sure that everyone, and we'll say everyone, it's not just the policymakers, the corporate leaders, the big people, everyone actually understands what is happening to our climate, to our biodiversity, to nature. My co-founder is the beautiful Fanny, who's participating in the session on health. She's a marine biologist, and when we set up People for Nature, she nicely reminded me that we could not be called People for Climate because climate is part of nature. And so therefore decided that we would be a cohort of people that care and want to take action for nature. So that's what we do. Okay.
Thank you, Audrey. I think we can all hear that people are so passionate about it and that's certain lives. We're going to actually start with a beautiful relaxation, sort of to help us get centered, grounded for the discussion that we're going to have. We've got Maxim, all the way from France. He's come just to play for us today. No, he's really organised. And what I'm going to invite you to do is to feel settled in this space. If you're happy to close your eyes, please do. Take a few deep breaths, listen to the music that Maxim and
Carla from Chile. So we're going to have a very multicultural
they're going to play for us. And perhaps at the same time, visualise your favourite place in nature. And that will help us all feel connected, grounded, and settled into this space. It'll only be a few minutes, so if you take the opportunity, a few deep breaths. If you're happy to close your eyes, please do. there is no nature positive future. By fostering intergenerational understanding, collaboration, and knowledge. That's what we're here to do. And what our time together will look like is, as you can see, we're in this informal, relaxed space. We welcome and encourage questions from all the participants and speakers to each other as we go through the session. We've got 3 videos we'll be watching first. Give you some more information about speakers and the videos we'll start. And then each of our speakers are going to take a turn. We're taking in turn to spend a few minutes sharing whatever it is that we're sharing with us, and then we will have an opportunity to ask some questions. Any questions before we start? We will have some arguments at some point, so that will find its way in the middle, so please help yourself. And at the same time, we've actually put some pledge cards on the table throughout the session at the end. We will pledge something and then tie it to our pledge tree downstairs. Right. So our first video is I'll read you a little bit about Sophia's Berkhout. One's plastic-free, Sophia, so you probably know something. She's a youth change maker for the young who fight against plastic pollution at 14, gathering over 12,000 signatures to ban single-use plastics in New South Wales. The campaign will help lead to the 2022 New South Wales Plastics Action Plan. Recognised internationally for her leadership, she continues to inspire collective action for grassroots activism, youth empowerment, collaboration with political and business leaders. And Sophia couldn't be with us today, but has sent us this message. And this is her message to the leaders at the COP.
Hi, my name is Sophia Skaparis, otherwise known as Plastic Free Sophia. I'm a young changemaker, educator and ocean lover who is passionate about sustainability and plastic pollution, but more importantly, passionate about creating a safe space for young people to come together to connect, take action and have hope for the future. If I had the chance to speak at COP, I would remind the world leaders that the climate crisis isn't just a political issue. Every decision that they make will shape our future and affect both people and the planet. I would urge them to listen to young people. We're inheriting the planet that they negotiate over, and we're asking for solutions that are fair, science-based, and ambiguous. We need genuine intergenerational connection and action, because the future should be something that we look forward to, not fear. I would like to see our Aussie leaders in COP bring First Nation voices, young people and local community into the room to be equal partners in shaping the solutions. Australia has so much potential, especially in being a true renewable energy superpower, and I want to see our leaders commit to stronger science-based targets.
Okay, so that's what Sophia's wanting to say to the leaders over at COP. Our next video is from Cal Lindsay, have I said that right? Some of you will know Cal. He's a young Australian environmental advocate, filmmaker and Sutherland Shire councillor, known for his work in ocean conservation, youth climate empowerment and plastic pollution reduction. He's actually at COP in Brazil and has sent us this message from COP. And after we hear from Cal, I'm going to invite you to share anything that resonated with you or any sense of contribution you might get from his message.
Hello everyone at AlterCOP, my name's Cal Glanzik. Sorry I can't be there today. I'm on the ground in Belém in Brazil at COP, and you can probably hear the aircon blasting behind me. It is extremely humid and hopefully you've got nicer weather in Australia today. But yeah, a bit about me. So I have been to 3 COPs. This is my 3rd, and my journey started in high school where I fundraised $100,000 and became the first student in the country to get solar, where I live in Sydney South, near Cronulla, my high school at Charitable High, and then from there helped to get plastic banned in New South Wales, helped 38 other schools follow suit to get solar panels at their high school, and then made the documentary Rising Up, which is actually playing here at COP next Monday. On top of that, I also am a local councillor where I live in the Sutherland Shire, and also run a program called Blue Mind. So the last year I've been travelling the country with Cooper Chapman, and we've been speaking to 11,000 students through this program and really trying to turn eager anxiety into action. So yeah, that's why I'm on the ground here at COP, to run a couple Blue Minds workshops, show my film, and just really try to bring some positivity and well-being into these spaces that are very, very dire a lot of the time. So I thought I'd share a bit about what COP is, sort of the different areas of COP and what it looks like on the ground, then what I've been getting up to so far, sort of what does day in the life look like, and then what we need to do leading into a hopeful COP31 in Australia. So in COP, I mean, it's just blown out in terms of it's COP30 obviously this year, and I feel like every year is just a continual spectacle. All these different things come together. So you've obviously got the negotiations happening for all these high-level meetings. You've got plenaries, so all these different sort of spaces where there's more, high-level talks. Then there's all the pavilions. That might be the Australian Government Pavilion, it could be a Children and Youth Pavilion, it could be an NGO. So they all have events every single hour, and there's, I'd say, nearly 100 of those. There's so many. And there's all these side events that happen in different rooms as well. There's civil society demonstrations, there's music, art, just all these different things happening. So it is such a big circus, I'd probably describe it, but it is pretty important in terms of some of the connections that you can build and some of the partnerships that come out of it. But the core focus is how do you actually get a really strong agreement, and I feel like that can get lost in terms of what actually happens at COP, because there's just so much happening every single hour. There's just events galore. So yeah, what I've been doing here, it's day 3, so Wednesday, and yeah, the last 2 days been engaging with the Assistant Minister for Climate, Josh Wilson. So he's been hosting a lot of different events for young people, trying to sort of listen to what we want to see in the future, which is climate action. But it's been really positive, and yeah, just catching up with a lot of my friends from the Pacific, sort of hearing their stories of what life's been like the last couple of years since I was last in Tuvalu. And just trying to connect with as many people on the ground here as we look for COP31 and how we can sort of really champion what that looks like. So yeah, it's been really interesting. Lots of really cool events that I've been to, and yeah, I guess the thing that I feel like we really need to focus on, because we know what needs to happen, we need to reduce emissions as quick as possible. And I mean, there was a stat that I wrote down that came out in a report that said that developing countries need $310 billion annually by 2035 for climate adaptation, and we're nowhere near that. So there is such a gap for funding at the moment, which is such a big concern, and especially in the Pacific, they're going through really horrible impacts of climate change at the moment. And if they don't get the funding, if we don't really try to support that and step up, then we're going to lose a lot of the things that make this region great. So quite a dire sort of sentence, but I think the biggest message that I'd love to share with everyone at AlterCOP this year is that a lot of the time when we think about these big global problems, we often just feel like there's nothing that we can do. We feel like we've hit a wall, what's the point? I can't change the world. And even in spaces like COP, it is just continually reiterated to me the importance to not try to change the whole world, but really try to focus on changing your own world. And there's so much that we can do. It's such an important need for every single young person in this room, every single person in your community, to really try to step up and be those champions, those advocates, those people that are looking after your own individual world. So whether that is engaging with your local council, your state MP, your federal MP, building those relationships, looking at your workplace, your sporting clubs, your schools, your universities, all those things within your control. And if enough of us do that, the world is going to change so quickly. And I think a lot of us get stuck because we don't actually know what the next tangible step is. So I'm sure today you've had so many incredible talks, so many incredible feelings of inspiration. So hopefully channel that into what you can do locally, because together we can truly change the world if we all just focus on our own work. And I think the biggest thing that we've got as a huge advantage for us over the next year is that with COP31 around the corner, the whole world is going to be hit at our region. So if we can really take this change, or if we can really lead now, that's going to just permeate and ripple through the whole world, the whole civil society, the whole government, just everyone's going to be looking at Australia next November. So the more that we can do now, the greater chance that we have to really influence the world. And also, Australia has such a big role to play. We're still one of the world's largest emitters of fossil fuels per person, one of the world's largest exporters of fossil fuels. We're the second largest producer of plastic waste, the first largest user of textile waste or discarded of textile waste per person in the world. So we have such a big role to play. So it is so important to take these actions. And yeah, together we can turn this around. So yeah, hope you enjoy AlterCOP. Wish I could be there, and yeah, I'm sure you guys are doing incredible work on the ground, which is so important, because spaces like this isn't necessarily where change happens. It is spaces like where you are now, and particularly in Australia this week, I'm sure you've all seen what's happening with the coalition effectively with their net zero, walking away potentially, and sort of the debates that are happening even in Queensland a few weeks ago. The state government there are really wanting to expand coal. So we have so much we really need to do from that domestic level, and I think if we can really do that, if we can change our world, our communities, our states, our country, that's going to really ripple through and change the whole world. So we've got such a big role to play in Australia. There's so many announcements and exciting things happening on the ground here, but it's definitely not enough to where we need to get to for 1.5, and what we're doing isn't enough in Australia. So hopefully everyone, after today, you can really just go really try to change your world. And I think just trying to engage with the local politicians being my biggest piece of advice. And I don't think enough of us go and meet with our councillors, our state MPs, our federal MPs. But as a councillor now, I can tell you that when people reach out to me, it definitely changes the way that I think and the motions and the things I bring to the floor. So yeah, hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for having me on virtually, and I'll see you all back in Australia.
Any thoughts? Anything stand out in what you see? Anything you've learned from that this year?
Lots of optimism.
Yeah. You kind of got that vibe, didn't you? Yeah. Day 3, I wonder what day he's on to now.
Yeah, I'll say that I think I'm impressed by his ability to be part of the sort of COP process without assuming that it's the best way, or needing to convince himself that it's the perfect system. And I think that's a really important thing, because you often see people in these papers being like, no, COP has to be the way, it's the only way. But him acknowledging that, it has its place, but we do need more in other places. I think that's really powerful.
I think also his points about the impact that Australia has are really important. I think I hear way too many people be like, oh, we're a small population, we're a small percentage of world emissions, when we look at per capita data, we're like a really nicely placed we're producing a lot of emissions. So that was very clever how we highlighted that in a series of stats. Yes. I love the way he talks about circle of influence, and he talks about we want to change the world, but understanding we can change the world from where we are, and going to our local leaders, and just making yourself known to those leaders, and having those meetings and helping them know what you want and want to see. That's a really cool point.
I love the way you tied in, for yourself as a counsellor. When people come to talk to him, it does change how he thinks, and he starts to see, I guess, what the priorities are in the community. So it's a good reminder that sometimes we feel like we can't do much, but it might just be a letter to your local member, or a knock on your MP's door,
Has anyone seen his film? No?
Yeah,
I know it's like a screening. He's a super approachable person, and you can all connect. It's only that you've seen the recording. It's really. I think he would have really liked to be in the room with us, and but obviously he got his badge to go to BLM, which I was very pleased, because we do need people there as well. But it was quite nice, like you said, the fact that we actually managed both processes. But he's a really nice person.
I like the way he also brought in the Pacific Islands, and so he was connecting with his people in Australia as well. And unfortunately, as we all know, that was obviously recorded before the news came. Not getting
changemakers will have AlterCOP30. Absolutely. Yes.
I like the way he wasn't jaded. A lot of people, become quite jaded with COP and the fact that it's not getting the changes that we need. And this is obviously his third COP, so he's not a beginner there, but he's still optimistic and he's still putting his positive energy forward, even though potentially at times he probably does feel quite jaded while he's there. I feel like it's not doing what it's supposed to do. So.
I read an interesting article about that. I think it was in a conversation recently about the cost per square metre of running in a COP is actually enormous, and it's like quite prohibitive for grassroots groups to get a voice there. So it's good that individuals like Cal are able to go and at least have some sort of impact, even if they can't be running a store. Because it just is this enormous event. Like over 50,000 people are attending COP in Brazil this year. It's a huge thing. 1,600 of them are fossil fuel lobbyists. It's a huge service, but it's good that they're giving that cover.
Yeah, and also, nice to write that maybe AlterCOP has a bigger and brighter place in this space, because we can be doing things regionally and not costing so much for individuals to be involved or organisations to be involved. So,
yeah, I think that's pretty awesome with AlterCOP being across the Asia Pacific region as well. Like obviously it's cost prohibitive for an Australian, but then for someone from the Pacific Islands, for example, to be able to get over there would be so much less of a chance. And that's quite, I guess, a common theme across the organisations, like the United Nations having unpaid internships, for example, things like that. We're always excluding those who really need to be there the most. So that's a great opportunity that AlterCOP brings.
It's also interesting what he said about, I think it was that $310 million needs to be given to each developing country, like over the next few years to reach a target. But yeah, it's like it has to be done. So much done reaching out to those developing communities and countries and like their people space.
Yeah. There's a massive debate about funding every year at COP because developing countries are always like, well, this is what science says, and then the developed nations that have money to spend are like, nope, we're not doing that. So there's this real tension there, I think, between everyone's objectives going into COP.
Alright, well, moving on to our next video, our last video, is Arlen Ecker. Said that right? He's a plastic-free boy. Arlen is a passionate, inspiring young leader who has been on a 7-year mission, protecting the ocean by enabling school students to have agency over their learning and as global citizens to create a just and sustainable future. So Arlen's his video goes about 3.5 minutes. It's sort of in 2 parts. The first one is him speaking to us about AlterCOP, and then the last part is sort of the longer story of what he does.
Hi Generation Now, it's Alian, the plastic-free boy, tuning into the AlterCOP30. I hope you're all having an amazing time. I'm here in Minion Falls in the Byron Bay Shire, and this is where I spent my childhood. If it wasn't in the ocean, it was right here, breathing in the fresh air of the rainforest. My message as a young person who's been campaigning since the age of 11 years old for now 8 years, presenting to over 400 schools globally, sharing the message of change-making as a young person and a global citizen. My message is the key of intergenerational collaboration. My mum, who's filming me right now, professional documentary filmmaker, and she's been documenting my learning experience as a change maker throughout the world, from Europe to Australia to the Great Barrier Reef. When I was 12, 13, 14, so many kids were addicted to their phones and social media. But my mum, thankfully, she did not let me go on social media. Instead, she gave me a plan B, the Plastic Free Boy Project, where I could use my voice and my purpose as a young change maker to experience and be useful in an ever-changing world, to experience solutions globally, film that, communicate it, with my mum filming me, presenting that to millions of students all around the world. So my message for the AlterCOP30 as a young change maker is most importantly showing young people how they can be useful, because now with media and social media, students are all the time looking at the bad news, the doomsday scenario. But really the solution isn't out there. First, it's yourself, your voice, your message. And I'm so thankful that I had that message, that I had that purpose and that opportunity. And that's what we need to give every single young person. Imagine a world where every single young person can spread their local or global solutions to each other. Create this network, this mycelium of change making. That is my message. So let's create that. I'll show you my changemaker journey, and I hope this inspires action. My name is Leon, otherwise known as the Plastic Free Boy, and since the age of 11 years old, I've been on a mission with my mum, a professional documentary filmmaker, to film and encounter my learning experience as a young person who wants to make a difference from a young age to protect global ecosystems. As you can hear, I'm from Australia, from the Great Barrier Reef, the largest coral reef on our planet, and what I like to call the heart of our oceans. For the past 4 years, we've been working on our latest project, Generation Now, Plan B for coral reefs and global ecosystems. And I can't wait to share it with you at your school for the Young Changemakers Day. Where I'll be holding different speeches and workshops to you students, sharing my learning experience, my failures, and what I've learned over the past 7 years of change making. I can't wait to start some amazing projects with all of you global students. Let's protect the Great Barrier Reef, the glaciers and waterways as Generation Now. Can't wait to see you.
So, any thoughts on the plastic superwash? How valuable do you think the ability to make documentaries and get messages out that way? How valuable? It is, yeah. So it's part of the puzzle pieces, if you like, to get the message out.
I don't know if you guys remember that movie 2040 that came out with little kids.
Yeah, some of us realize that.
Yeah, that was huge. That was for like my part of the way through, I guess.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yes, I know documentaries and stuff, particularly if you watch them when you're a kid, they can kind of shape how you see the world. So, yeah.
It's a documentary, like it's a form of medium where you actually feel connected to the person or like the ecosystem or species that are being shown. Like with that same message in text, you would get the same sense of like collective purpose, which I think is something that so often we're missing and is a real like key to like climate action, because we collectively care about something. We're much more likely to have like momentum. But yeah, I'm saying with Jess, it wasn't 2040, but I grew up like collecting the little data CDs and paper and watching them every single week, and yeah, it's been like a massive, yeah.
Do you think it's partly because with that sort of media, you've got the visual, you've got the music that goes with it, so it creates an emotional connection. I think that's really important to shift your thinking.
I think part of it's as simple as seeing videos of the landscapes to kind of remind us of our life, like seeing the landscapes, like even if you're not that, like being able to see it through media, like it reminds you, oh yeah, we want to protect landscapes like that, because that's stunning, that's beautiful, and it kind of, I guess, reinforces that life.
They made a follow-up movie to 2040 that I want to call Future Council.
Yeah.
And that's really good. I think my biggest takeaway from that film was the emotions, because it's about kids and how kids can be real climate leaders, and saying that like kids have good ideas, and it's saying they don't have to be 40, like it's like, you know, at the age of 10, and I think, yeah, because kids speak from their emotions. It's an amazing scene, they go to this head of like the ING bank and they're just like, no, and it's just like, it's so powerful, and that made me think, well, I have to go back to, yeah, an emotional connection to those beautiful places, and yeah, it's through emotion that really has an impact.
It's so nice to hear. Yeah, it's so nice to hear that you found it powerful, because we went to watch it with my children. So I have 2 children that are almost 8 and 14, and I cried. Peter cried as well. We tried, and I think you know, if you haven't seen the movie, you there's a part in the movie where you see the emotions, the very sad emotions of those children.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't keep it together. I thought, what are we doing? And two are children, and just seeing them realize what we're doing and being sad at that. So, but it's not like there is a beautiful message behind this movie, and everyone should watch it. But yeah, for me, it was very hard to watch. It was very difficult to, really realize that. Like I know, my children used to be driver for the work that I do. But yeah, sometimes when I think about what we're doing and what we continue to do to them and to their children, I'm just like,
I think it's an important point. Sorry. Important point of value of the documentary as a long-form storytelling is quite important because we have, and I work in energy and climate policy, but not here in a work capacity, but we should have after this session. You can have all the stats in the world, you can talk about $50 billion a year, 2035 to add up things, unless you can put that, the science and the data into a compelling narrative actually has a hook. Like you said, your children is your hook, I'm sure there are other things that make it because, your children is like the thing for you. So I guess it's like an act for all of us here to work out how the message gets tied to a compelling story. Otherwise, we're not changing, hearts and minds. And that's what the documentary is so powerful. The documentary is 2.5 hour opportunity to have a compelling story with the visuals and with the character development. So there's a few things that makes a compelling narrative, but that narrative is critical over the good science.
You don't have to sort of pay other changes or communications issues.
So I think, sorry, I'm on the other side. I think, look, I worked with climate change, and with climate change for 15 years, and when you work in that space, you become very conditioned, and you actually just sort of step away and it becomes a technical issue. When I sort of watch those David Attenborough, sort of takes me back to what I'm doing this work. But I think it's more than just about the medium of the documentary itself. And quite often we go to a documentary and walk out and be really passionate and so we want to do something, but the question is, well, what do I do and where do I go from here? Quite often that is not answered. So I think there's a potential sort of opportunity there to fill that space. So people, once they are connected with, they can then take that passion and actually do something positive.
Can I add something to that? Yes. So I'm a climate change communication behavior change scientist. I have a lot of documentaries, fantastic film, great way to take nature, super emotional, but behavior change doesn't just happen because you're inspired, and exactly what you just said. And there's been studies on good old David Attenborough that Blue Planet did not lead to any level of behavior change that was measurable. Yes, it got people emotional, it probably connected people who were already engaged to people like us, it reminded them why we're doing it. But to get new people involved, like the latest film Ocean, has anyone seen it? Yeah, the bottom trawling. Super emotional, everyone cries. I went with people who aren't really conservationists, they were like, oh, I'm sorry, what do I do? And exactly what you just said, walk out, back to life. Like there was no tangible call to action for an individual. It was very much about systems change, the UN conference, blah, 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 which everyone's like, yes. And there's studies that say, like, you tell people we need 1.5 degrees, people go, yes. Yes, we do. There's no tangible way to tell people how to act within this bigger system. But that was really interesting. I met the folk that did Ocean, and I was like, do you want my honest opinion? I was like, there was no call to action. Like, for all those millions of people, David Attenborough can reach people that we can't. People listen to him, whatever side of politics they're on, they listen to him, so what a chance to engage people in an action. But they said actually our target audience wasn't everyday people, it was certain governments, it was the European Union. So they've been screening that with decision makers and politicians. And so I was like, okay, that makes sense if your target audience was not an everyday person, but I still think it was a missed opportunity because so many people would watch that. And maybe misguided as well.
Like the psychology is like gaining information is like not linked to changes in behavioral perspective. Like even people who have information online, it actually doesn't change their perspective at all, and it's like the least effective in changing psychology.
I think that documentaries like, you think of a cake, I like food analogies. Like the documentary and the story and that narrative and the arc is the fully made cake. It's got layers, it's got icing, it's packaged.
but you actually need ingredients for behaviour change, and there's psychological ingredients, you need to break through cultural barriers, social barriers, all other things. Anyway, documentary is great. They could require someone for maybe consulting behaviours. That's all.
Well, we might actually, just want to, if Rob, your land is on a roll, I might think we'll go first, if that's all right. We're happy to.
I feel I just talk so much. Someone else can
come back to you, or happy to go. Sure. Okay. I'll just introduce Yolanda for us, and then I'll come back to you, Jess, if that's all right. You've got sorry, I have you here. So Yolanda is a marine social scientist and climate communications researcher. I've got all that right? Close enough.
Big on that.
Whose work empowers ocean-connected communities to drive inclusive action, climate action, drawing on environmental psychology and evidence-based storytelling. She's the founder and CEO of Divers for Climate, Director of Research at the Multicultural Leadership Initiative, and a global ocean leader through roles with the Sustainable Ocean Alliance, Ocean Uprise, and the University of Queensland. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's good. This is all we've been introduced.
So Yolanda's going to now be our first speaker here today. And as I said at the start, we've got about 5 minutes or so each, but please feel free to take the time to share. Yolanda, what would you like to speak to us about?
I don't know. Was there a thing?
Well, primarily on the work that you do, or maybe around some storytelling, some action that perhaps could be taken.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm sorry for taking up space. I feel like I grew up in the youth climate space, but I'm now with adjacent. There's no space for us who are not willing to go yet. But I guess I can tell you a bit about my story and why communication has become someone's involved climate as a communication problem. It so is. And so my background is actually in tourism. So I work as a dive instructor on the Great Barrier Reef. Up in Cairns, best time of my life. Has anyone been to the reef? Is it amazing? Yes. That was very incredible. But working up there, you get confronted with a lot. You get asked a lot of questions by strangers every day. Those questions are getting increasingly difficult. Like, what's happening with climate change? Can you do anything? Is the reef dead? And I'm like I just come out of like my undergrad. I was like, the reef we're going to today is pretty good. I've seen the news that you've seen, but like, I don't want to ruin your day, and I'm getting paid to show you good time. And it's not a conversation that tourism encouraged at the time. It's still largely one that they don't, because they're not sure how to tell that story. And so I kind of was like, okay, I need to be able to answer this question. I went to my instructor course, asked them, because they do a whole conservation component. They were like, yeah, we do restoration, plastic free, total conservation. I was like, oh, but climate change, how do we speak about it? And they were like, oh, we don't. Climate's for the climate people, we do ocean stuff. And I was like, what do you mean? But they really like, it's in the too hard bucket. It's too complex. It's not a nice story. Because all those other ocean things, they're tangible. You can see and do them with your hands. They're sexy. Whereas climate's like how do you communicate that the ocean's boiling and the only solution is like at a systems policy level when you're on a boat and someone's paid $100 to come to the Great Barrier Reef. And I just couldn't find someone that would help me, and I was like, I'm just going to avoid the question. And so I ended up ranting online, as you do, and found a group of other people who work on boats who also have the same problem. Like, we're on the front line, we're seeing reef bleaching, we love the reef, we know it's, there's so much to say. We still can't talk about it, but like, I feel like something's wrong. So we formed this group called Divers for Climate, and it's been this whole huge storytelling exercise to figure out what is the message, how do you tell a story about the reef in a way that is not discouraging. If you've seen the latest reports about coral reefs, it's not a good time to work on a coral reef. How do you tell that story in a way that doesn't shy away from reality, but is inspiring and motivating, and it doesn't hurt an industry like tourism, which people think tourism is extractive and such a privilege, and it is. But the power of tourism is to show people nature, right? Is to bring people on this journey. I'm sure many of us are here because we've had some amazing nature experience. And so it's been this huge storytelling journey. I went on a PhD path to figure it out, didn't figure it out. I learned a lot about behaviour change and how complicated humans are, and that communication is everything, whether it's communicating in public or through media or politicians or, with each other. The way we tell stories is everything. And so I went to Berkhout, and now we've been talking to data operators around Australia as the ocean impacts get a bit more difficult. How do we tell the story in a way that actually is meaningful, makes a difference? So we're trying to form a marine tourism climate lobby, because if fossil fuels can have one, we can too. And start a parliamentary diet club and try and shift the narrative around oceans and tourism and climate. Yeah, we don't have any answers yet, but it's just been like a very interesting, it's all been about storytelling communication. And the ocean space for a long time has had this very big assumption that if you just inspire people and raise awareness, it will work. Because that's how it works for us, but it's just not how it happens for a lot of people. And the ocean's still very outside of mind for most Australians, which is crazy. I mean, there's 176 climate groups in the Australian climate movement. 3 do ocean stuff, one's us. That's crazy. But yeah, on the reef bleachers, everyone wants to talk about it and say it's dying, it's dead, urgent action now. And that just makes the people who rely on it scared to speak out. So we're doing something wrong. Most of Australia thinks the reef died 5 years ago. So last year we talked to the Environment Minister to be like, you know, what are you doing about it? And she was like, oh, like, it's just really not a priority because the Australian public thinks it's done. So the narrative needs to change. Anyway, that's all. Sorry, thank you for listening.
I'm sure we could ask a million questions around that. So,
Can I just, one thing that I find really interesting is I was just reading, I think yesterday, there was an article in The Guardian about Nibiru. And I was reading some people's comments about that. And the exact same thing that you said, you know, some guy comes on there. So I was talking to the dive instructor, and he dives these reefs all the time, and he said it's fine. So this is just all the alarmists having another go, and you know.
It's really interesting to, I was working with the Guardian yesterday, because I couldn't get anyone from tourism to speak out. So I have a few contacts over in Lindsay, the one that is open to it. Usually the people who just left tourism who are willing to speak out. She was at reception or on a boat. It's like, last minute's really hard to get done. But then I ended up telling him, like, look, it's like, people are just not ready, they're not there yet. And for media, and I'm glad that we didn't get anyone because the article was like, it's screwed, and I'm like, tourism's never going to speak out to message like that. But all of them are terrified. Like, all of them are so worried about summer. And if it happens again, what happens to their business? That's something I'm so connected to. But yeah, it's, and me looking down their face or the reef faces is like, it's dead, no it's not. Yes it is, no it's not, instead of disengaged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you move into climate psychology?
I just kind of kept digging at why is this not working? And I landed in it because people are complicated. Yeah, I was really lucky with supervisor at the University of Queensland. And I was asking her all these communication questions, and she was in the more psychology, like quantitative behavior science space. She was like, we can measure that, and I was like, interesting. And I kind of fell into it the more I wanted to answer the questions. And it becomes really fascinating because like communicating climate change is not about this one-way transfer of knowledge, right? You want to make people do something, and that's just a completely different way of communicating. So it just happened. I didn't even know it was a field, like environmental psychology is a whole thing that didn't exist until years ago.
Whose job is it to communicate back to like public, for instance, like saying it's in the tuna basket? I know it's great that you have a community group to go into that basket, but like ideally you should be taking that up as a
communicating
well, the problems that people don't know about, like with climate change for
depends on the audience. A different message for every messenger message and audience. So it depends on what you want them to do. Which is why groups, all the climate groups that are coming up, like Farmers for Climate, there's all these different like identity-based groups. They're so powerful because there are many different messengers with slightly different messages, but for very different audiences, and that's really the only way we're going to cut through. Because we've had this big blanket climate message for so long from climate scientists and people that a lot of like climate advocacy people. And it's been great because we've moved needle quite a lot, but we're just at this point where we need something different. And so having lots of different messages and people doing it from different angles is kind of what we're doing. Which means a lot more work to figure out what are those messages and what are the calls to action and who do we need to be targeting. But I think it's more strategic communication is how we really, we're at this like tipping point now. I think more strategic communication is what we're looking at.
Yeah, connection is key. We live in Toronto for a while, and I did a lot of advocacy work for a crowd called Citizens Climate. And one of the things, we had one message, and we were Canadian, we had one message, and we worked with the we wanted a carbon-free dividend. That was the whole thing we worked on. We didn't discount all the other important messages for our people. That was our message. And we went to Washington and we lobbied on Hill. Washington met all these Congress people and all that sort of stuff. And the most important aid we have is our mobile phones to look up the background of the congressperson so we can craft the message so we can connect with them. And I don't think they'll think it grew because Canada actually introduced a carbon fee and dividend, still been all that since. But it was really about, you know, being able to connect with those people, make that connection, make that story, and so we go from there. There was something we could possibly do to make it off, but it was like it's my experience.
I just came back from a lobbying trip in Canada with politicians in Canada. We did some training with the Australian Democracy Network, which is an organisation which works with advocates in all sorts of spaces within Parliament House. And that was the key message, is how to connect them. So we were talking to politicians about researching and understanding what they're doing, really connecting with them on that community basis, so that how to get that message across. And obviously on some politicians that wasn't very successful, especially in the moment. The older politicians who are more entrenched and established in the House, but a lot of the newer politicians who just came to do that the very susceptible to that message because they're connected with their community and what's going to bring them to the market. So I think it's really important to connect with people on a very personal level.
Very dedicated, she's going to be off to an exam. So Jess is a impressive young woman. First year laws and humanities student at University of Queensland and multi-award advocate shaping change on the global stage. She leads the World Economic Forum's Brisbane Global Shapers Hub, holds leadership roles with Future Forward Australia and the Dove Foundation for Global Change, advises the US Consulate and directs SDSN Youth's Asia Pacific Operations. Have you got time to study? Connecting changemakers from India to Indonesia, Korea to Kazakhstan. At home, Jess is passionate child abuse survivor advocate, serving as a youth advisor to NAPCAN Origin, the Raise Foundation and the Dental
I guess just to simplify that, I've headed into the advocacy space not as a climate activist but as a child abuse prevention advocate. So, I mean, that's kind of my main role is I work with governments and charities to safeguard policy for young people. But as we all know, it's a very, intersecting issue, both, climate action and child abuse prevention action. A lot of that is about making sure that our kids and the next generation, they have a childhood to look forward to. So that's protecting their environmental spaces, protecting their social spaces, just making sure that they have everything they need to thrive. So there's a huge intersecting area there, especially when we know that when you see climate change impacts our most vulnerable populations, kids being one of them. So huge overlap there. I'm actually relatively new in terms of climate action, but most of my work comes from policy level, particularly mobilising international connections. So at SDSN Youth, that's the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, who is the UN's SDG. You guys are familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals? That's those guys. So I kind of operate the Asia Pacific region, which means I've got teams across the region, each one doing local change, and my job is to then connect them to that international forum and build those connections between them. So it's a lot of cultural collaboration, facilitating dialogue, stuff like that. And yeah, I guess working to get the governments and the young people in the same spaces. Interesting, because as a young person who can speak government, I suppose, you kind of have to hold two different hats. So you're a young person first and foremost, but then you also kind of got to play into those systems that we know are not always perfect, oftentimes are very unperfect. Yeah, it's kind of translating government to young person and young person to government. That's I suppose the long and short of it. And then at the Brisbane Global Shapers Hub with the World Economic Forum, that's also actually where I'm raised. And that's very local urban change. But we're also collaborating at the moment with St. Lucia in the Caribbean to get some Oceania Caribbean youth climate collaboration there. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. Happy to take questions rather than just yapping.
Could you tell us a bit more about what, for example, what the Shapers Hub actually does?
Yeah. So basically the World Economic Forum gives us a bunch of freedom as to what we want to do. Global Shapers are in about 500 cities across 150 countries. And obviously each one of those cities is going to have completely different needs. So it's very much left up to us with certain guidelines how we operate that. So Brisbane's big climate project at the moment is that we're working with St. Lucia in the Caribbean to create an Oceania Caribbean Climate Alliance. We know a lot of the grassroots climate action is either local, regional, or very international, right? But these are two regions that both have a lot of small developing island nations. They share very similar kind of climate conditions and climate struggles, but the Oceania and Caribbean don't have too many direct climate relationships at that grassroots youth level. So we want that kind of bilateral collaboration to improve. So the plan is we're going to be hosting a climate conference in the Caribbean, which is obviously standing conference stuff, but then also on the ground action while we're there. They've got a lot of issues at the moment with tourism impacting their waterways. So we want to help clean particularly plastic pollution out of the waterways. And we're working with ideas like seamen, obviously there's UN seamen, but kind of getting those, bringing together youth climate leaders from every single Oceania and Caribbean country. I guess kind of to establish what COP should be, and that's very local change makers, connecting them and giving them those global platforms. Speaking government, I suppose, so giving what young people want to government.
So I haven't been in Brisbane for super long, just a few years. I came from Sydney. And in the work that I do, I facilitate climate science workshops, right? So some of you might know my workshops. And we've had experiences with high school students that have been extremely different. So some high school students super engaged, like really, understanding carbon cycles, what's happening, like wanting to be change makers. And then we've had experiences where I found that it's needs no engagement. I was like, and so, I kind of felt maybe my communication skills need improvement, or maybe, sometimes I go, maybe I'm like a little bit too old, and, it's harder for me to engage with, that age group. I don't know, there was teen years ago, and blah, 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 whatever, I don't know. So I have so many, kind of, but I'd like, and you or anyone, what's your take on that? Like, what do you think is happening? How can I help, really engage with those high school students? Tips or...
I think the first starting point is it's not necessarily new. A lot of young people don't have their basic needs met at the moment. A lot of young people are very much struggling to eat. Cost of living crisis is huge. Youth homelessness, huge issue. We're also working on that with Shapers. And a lot of young people are in very unsafe situations where they are forced to look only at themselves and their own issues because that's how they start. And unfortunately that's something we see is that as the socio-economic situation gets worse, young people's ability to care about these big issues, it kind of diminishes because right now it's about, I'm starving, I'm hungry, I want to go to at home so I can see this stuff in the fridge. I want to make sure I can eat. And it really can be that young people I know as well working keeps. I was basically working full time when I was 13 for similar reasons, and that was common as well. So I think we have to make sure as well that there's fundamental needs in there, which means it can be as simple as having a pack of Arnott's biscuits at the workshop. I guess just facilitating a place where they have those physiological needs met. So they've got there's food and water at the event. Maybe there's a sensory space where if they're feeling overwhelmed, they can go and sit down. Looking at redesigning the space to make it safer in the psychological sense for young people. So that's one of the things we look at a lot in the child protection space. It's as simple as having a situation like this where it's a circle rather than a classroom setup. Moving the chairs out the way, sitting on the floor, going outside, actually, huge engagement boosts generally, particularly for young people who don't have any recreational time because they are working multiple jobs. And we're talking high schoolers, we're not just talking university kids. So yeah, it's I guess looking at the very simple things like how to make the space more inviting, make sure that those needs are met, and then it follows. It's almost natural that when they feel like they have a safe space and they have their needs met. A lot of kids, when they have those things, they really want to engage in these conversations. Obviously, young people have so much empathy and so much love that when they're able to look past themselves, I think that's when you get the huge engagement. And getting to enjoy butcher's papers and talking about governments and stuff, it can really work once they're feeling safe.
A question. I was going to add, I've worked in a high school running an environment club for high schoolers, and we've also done some education camps, and I think high school students love experiential learning activities, so it's in nature, but they're actually understanding like the forest on an emotional level, like it's like so long just a leaf, like it's hands-on activities, and it's like those emotions, and then suddenly they're caring. It's that doing, so it's like, yeah, going from that survival mode in that classroom to being outside, feeling relaxed and feeling that sense of connection. But I think also young people just love action, like they love being hard to clean up. So they have to lead a clothes, and I just remember the kids' spirits so high when they realised they picked up 2,500 pieces of rubbish, and they could influence change. Like young people just love that, being a part of knowing that they actually made a difference. And there's a lot of like psychology looking into like the benefits of just doing a clean up, because you can tangibly see the difference you've made.
I did a similar thing when I was around that age, and I did like a tree planting thing my school organised. And then at the same time, like, oh yeah, and by the way, this tree you can use to make tea. And so teaching us kind of about the plants while we were there, and I was like, oh my gosh, okay, I didn't even know that I've got like bush bucket in my local park, right? And it's just as simple as, I suppose, integrating that practical thing with the lessons and then the bigger picture stuff. You can't start with the big picture stuff, definitely.
I have a question about cross-cultural communication. You said you manage a lot of teams across Asia Pacific, and I was living in Nepal for about a year, and I was doing some projects with a bit of a varied team, and I always found it was really difficult to get the input from the young women, because if you're looking at a patriarchal collectivist society, in terms of that level of respect, there's always the higher respect given to those who are older and those who are male. So I found that I was constantly having to call upon them individually to get their opinion, or outside of that group meeting. How do you make sure that those voices are heard in your work?
It's a huge thing. I guess the first step is I try and follow it. So there's a thing I say to a lot of women I work with. Walk with the confidence of a mediocre white man. And it really is because you look at the statistics, right, and women will apply for a job if they feel they need 100% of the qualifications on average, whereas for men to apply for a job, they feel like they need 50%. And those are statistics. I don't know if it's exactly 150, but it's around that where it's women will only put themselves forward for something if they know they're 100% qualified. And so I say, the worst thing that can happen is that you apply for something and you get rejected, right? Or that's not that bad in the big scheme of things. But I suppose it's, one of the things is talking to those girls, and I say girls, they're, really most of them, but talking to them about, if you feel that this is something you want to do, put your hat in the ring, and most likely it'll work. So that's why I feel like I'm in a lot of high-level governance positions. I don't let them know that I'm on team a lot of the time, because that's not really relevant. I can do the job well. But it's, I suppose, if I were to do, would I go for this? Would I shoot for this? And a lot of the time the answer is yes. But then, as you said, in cross-cultural collaboration, it gets a little harder, because then there's not just the gender element, there's cultural elements, language barriers as well. Like a lot of us are speaking in fluently English, but that's not most people's first language in the region. So yeah, it's huge, and I haven't figured out a way to solve that in the group situation, but I am very conscious to do very frequent one-on-one chats with women and their teams as well. there's a couple of teams in the region that are more female dominated, and they tend to feel like they have more autonomy because they're in an environment where there's a lot of other women.
I did this really interesting question. I did a research project in Indonesia a few years back for Red House and rural villages to research peatland conservation, and my team happened to be all women, so it's like this multidisciplinary team of students from UQ, from like a law background, people from really technical and science and environmental management background, and because we were all women and we were welcomed into women's only spaces where our male sort of peers weren't allowed to be, and we had this amazing experience of like this learning community that we were in, and these women would take us in and like take off their hijabs and have their hair down, and be like dancing around to Disney songs, and like they're in this really intimate like family environment almost. It's a whole just because we're women. Yeah, and so it's about just adapting whatever local context is and sending in speakers who will be able to integrate, and we also worked with a translator who was really excellent, also female, but could just integrate and understand all the cultural nuances and stuff, so we weren't dropping language and cultural back.
And part of that is not feeling like you're being rude and telling them no. Telling them like, sorry, this is like a woman's space, or okay, well, thank you for sharing your piece. We have to apply that for you. Let's go to another people in the room. A lot of them aren't used to hearing that from a girl, particularly a girl who's 10 years older. They don't have it. They get used to it. They have to. They don't have a choice because this is not just their space, right? And I don't mind if at times that comes across to them as rude because it's not necessarily something they're used to. It's just about the way you communicate it and knowing that ultimately that's part of what leadership positions are. That's my one. Oh my god. I do not think that works right now. But if you do want to reach out and chat further, let my name's Jess, sorry, we'll be able to find me on LinkedIn or whatever. More than happy to chat to you guys further. I wish I had more time with you, but sounds like we're really exciting. But look at the recordings.
Yes, and that's a really good point, like if any of you think they're denying or whatever, and then introduction